Hello, Cleveland, and welcome back to another edition of the Dogland Podcast. I am your host, Jackson McCurry, and wait a minute. Joining me tonight, my co-host, my partner in crime, he's back. Anthony Joki is joining me for this episode. Anthony, how are you, brother? It's been a minute.
It has been a very long time. And we were talking like before we started here. Uh, we last talked on March 18th. It has been almost 5 months since you and I have sat down to talk Browns football. And I tell you what, it's this has been a very long time coming, and I am very excited for the season. I know you and I are really about to get back into the groove with the podcast and the website and everything, and um, the excitement that this town has for this Brown season. I have really begun to feel it, and I think that's just going to propel us to have some really great conversation, some really great discussion, and hopefully um, this weekend uh, means that we'll have football, Browns football, until that second week in February.
Absolutely, man. And I just hope that I've done you proud because this is your podcast more than it's even I know it's our podcast, but this is more yours because you started and everything. I just hope the last 5 months and most of 2021 I've done you proud with how I've kind of took the torch and carried it during this time.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no words to express like how grateful I am that you just took everything and ran with it in my absence, and uh, the quality of shows that you've been able to put out, the great guests that you have had on, um, consistently Jack Duffin coming on to talk with you. Um, Look, I honestly don't need to be here with how good of a job that you do. So you do a great job, and I'm just so thankful for it. So thankful that this is our fifth year doing this, which is
Yes.
crazy. This is crazy to think. Um, and like when we started this podcast, we didn't know that we were in for an 0-16 season. Um, so to see where it's come in 5 years is really exciting, and um, I know that hopefully we can uh, have a Super Bowl post game show in a little while.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's this year or what's any point over the next couple of years, like that post game Super Bowl show, it's gonna be great just because of everything we've gone through the first four seasons, and now we're entering season five of this. Like, yeah, I just hope we can get to that point, Anthony, for sure. But tonight on this episode, we're going to talk about the preseason opener, which was Saturday night against Jacksonville. The Browns win 23-13. And, I don't know where exactly to start this, but let's go ahead and start on the offensive side of the ball and mainly the wide receiver position. Anthony, we didn't see, Jarvis Landry, we didn't see Odell Beckham, but, we got to see some flashes of what the future of the position could look like. Donovan Peoples-Jones, who has been, every day, they were talking camp, and Stephen Thomas has referred to this. He goes, they say DPJ is making flashes, but when he's doing it every day, it's not flashes anymore. And, right away, Saturday night, Case Keenum went to him and kept going to him. And we kept seeing what DPJ could potentially be, not only this year for the Browns offense, but into the future as well.
Yeah, isn't it nice to you know, we don't have to really worry about him because we still have these extremely talented receivers in Odell and Jarvis Landry, can slowly bring him along, but he is doing a tremendous job in forcing the Browns to get him out on the field more. He's had a tremendous training camp. Him working with Baker in the off season consistently is obviously paid off, and I'm very excited for the kid. And we talk about these receivers. He played last night. Higgins, Davion Davis had a very nice game. The guy that I was really excited to see who didn't get to play, and that was Anthony Schwartz, and that's just another young guy that they have in their arsenal. Who could potentially make an impact on this team. So I mean, there's so many guys. Demetric Felton, is kind of in that hybrid role between running back and wide receiver. There's just so many young guys on this team, especially at the skill positions that are ready and primed to contribute. And when you're a team with aspirations like the Browns do, having these young, hungry guys to push the competition, and it's been stressed that in the training camp and whatnot that there's been a lot of competition, and you can certainly see it paying off right away. And when you consistently have really good competition between talented players, it's only going to mean good things for your football team. So you see what all these younger guys bring to the table, in reminding these veterans like Odell, like Jarvis, like, hey, there's always somebody coming up right behind you, and it's only going to push those guys who are extreme competitors even harder. So I'm really excited to see where it's going to go.
Yeah, without question. I mean, yeah, I was looking forward to see Anthony Schwartz. Obviously, he's done with the hamstring injury, so hopefully he'll be back this week. Coach Stefanski hinted that guys that have been injured will probably be back on the practice field later this week, especially with the Giants coming into town for the joint practices. So those will be fun to watch and break down. But getting Schwartz back, obviously that'll be a guy we definitely want to see, just because he's been talked about so much since we drafted him. But yeah, you mentioned Donovan Peoples-Jones. Like, he's emerging to a point, Anthony, where I think maybe some point in the season he goes to wide receiver too. They put Landry in the slot. I mean, we talk about Higgins. You got Kaderil Hodge there as well. And then you just look at the depth at this position. You think back 5 years ago, Anthony, Terrell Pryor was our number one receiver. Now we have 6, 7, 8 guys deep at the wide receiver position. You don't even mention Ryan Switzer. You mentioned Davion Davis, who was with Stefanski in Minnesota a couple years ago when he was on the Vikings practice squad. Jamarcus Bradley, who stepped up in a huge, huge situation against the Jets, where his only work with the team was in a hotel parking lot the morning of the game, and he came in and had like 6 catches for 60 yards as an undrafted rookie. Like, there's so much talent at this position. They have a great wide receiver coach in Chad O'Shea. I mean, regardless of what happens after 2021 with, Odell and or Jarvis Landry, you have to feel good about the talent that they are building in that wide receiver room, that if one of those guys go or if both go, you feel good about the guys behind them, that they will step up and they'll be ready to take the lead should one of those guys end up leaving.
Yeah, I know, like, it's very unfortunate that we can't keep everybody. I wish there was a way to, protect extra players on your roster to where they weren't, where they're not poachable by other teams. But for once, Jack, you look at the talent that is on this Browns roster, and just specifically at the skill positions, there's guys at the wide receiver position that aren't going to make this team that will go contribute on other football teams. Same thing for the running back position. You look at a guy like John Kelly last night, who I thought had a very nice game and looked pretty good as a running back. He might not contribute here, but I bet you he's going to latch on with another team and contributes. And it's nice to be on that other side, to where we're arguing, who's going to be like the 5th and 6th guy, who's going to make this team. And we're not arguing about, well, who's going to be the number one receiver. We know who that is on this team. But when you're able to talk about the 5th, 6th, and 7th guys at a position and wondering who's going to make the team, you're in a very good spot.
Yeah, without question. I mean, like you said, the Browns are going to cut guys in training camp and preseason, where it'll be a shock, but also at the same time it won't be, because we have so much talent on this team. Like, I think Jake Burns said it the other day. He's like, we have our 45 active guys probably on the roster, 46 active guys on the roster. We're just trying to figure out who like the 3rd, maybe the 4th string guys are at certain positions, and that's like a great thing, because and I mentioned this on the Top Dogs podcast, we would go into cut days the last couple of years, Anthony, when we were at the lowest, and we were like, okay, well, we need to get this position, this position, this position on the waiver wire, and and that just showed like how bad our roster was in terms of talent. Now we don't have to worry about that. And then we're going to get into a situation here with the roster cut downs where we might trade a guy for like a late round pick just because there could be a team out there that thinks, hey, we're not going to be able to get him on the waiver wire. He can help our team, and he would be like a fourth or fifth string guy here, and we can get a late round pick for him. So it's just amazing to see like the overhaul that Sashi Brown, John Dorsey, and Andrew Berry did in the last couple of seasons here with the Browns. So it just goes to show that it wasn't just one guy. It took a couple years and unfortunately a couple front offices to make it all happen.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point too about like the draft picks, because if you're able to squeeze out like an extra 6th round pick here and an extra like maybe I don't know if there's anybody they could trade that they could get like a 4th round pick for, but you get the idea. If you're able to squeeze out a couple extra draft selections, that only helps you. And if those guys weren't going to make the team anyway, that's just such a win-win that that's certainly something that I'm sure Andrew Berry and crew are going to look at and listen to all the phone calls that come through. And there's certainly guys on this team that are on the bubble that could probably be had for draft picks. Or maybe even another position player, like maybe a linebacker or something, or maybe like a corner, just like a fair kind of swap, I guess, for those kind of bubble guys that aren't going to make the team. So it's very exciting to see like where this cut down is going to be. I know there's going to be a lot of tough decisions, but hey, it's nice when you have to make tough decisions, and like you said, we've come such a long way from where we're looking at the waiver wire and maybe there's like 5 guys we want to decide, but now I really can't think of like a position to where I could say we need to go get like 2 or 3 guys at that spot.
Yeah, without a question. And, one of the positions we don't need is quarterback. And, Baker Mayfield doesn't play Saturday night. It was the Case Keenum and Kyle Lauletta show, and they played pretty damn well. I mean, the two combined went 31 of 44 for 319 and 2 touchdowns. I thought Lauletta outperformed Keenum, and you mentioned, like, could there be a guy we could get a 4th round pick for? Maybe Case Keenum. Maybe if there's a team out there that needs a quarterback that they come calling to Cleveland about Case Keenum. I don't know the Browns' willingness to trade him, but, I mean, if they offer a 3rd or 4th round pick, I think they could do it. But, thinking about these two guys, they stepped in, they know the system, and they executed it well. I mean, I didn't see anything to really complain about from either Lauletta or Keenum on Saturday night.
No, not at all. And, you want to see Case Keenum, who's a veteran, he knows the system. You want to see him come in and operate the offense because, look, if by some god awful reason he has to play during the season, you want him to be able to step in right away and be able to control everything, run the offense. It's an offense that he knows, being with Stefanski in the past. So there's certainly he has that experience, and you want to see a guy like Lauletta who, look, this is probably the last season that Keenum's going to be here, so you want to see a guy like him step up and pick up learning things, and maybe he's the guy for the next 2 or 3 years who can sit behind Baker, and maybe it turns into a Matt Flynn situation to where you can end up trading him for like a 2nd or 3rd round draft pick. If he continues to show promise, and I thought he showed a lot of promise last night. He had great touch on his passes. I thought he did a very good job of putting the ball to where only the receivers can catch it. And, he just seemed to have a connection with some of these guys, and he operated that offense very well for 2.5 quarters. So he did a very good job, and I'm curious to see where it's going to continue with him. And, if it's just going to be him him and Case Keenum throughout this entire preseason to kind of showcase them. I don't know, and we could have this discussion too. Like, do we really need to play, Baker in the preseason at all? We have 17 games this year. Last season they went in and won as many games as they did without a preseason. So, do we really need to, play the starters, risk any kind of injury? Maybe like a series next week at home in front of what I'm sure is going to be like a crazy crowd on Sunday. So, it's certainly a conversation that we could have of, do we even really need to play these guys at all this preseason?
Well, I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm of the opinion they don't need to play any of the starters in the preseason. I just think the focus is, and especially with a 17-game schedule, get everybody healthy and get everybody ready for week 1. You have all these practices. You have the joint practices coming up, which I think are going to be key because it's pretty much another preseason like scrimmage type atmosphere. You're going to get to see, Baker, Odell, Landry, Chubb, and Hunt, and our starting offensive line against a Giants defense, which is formidable. I mean, they're up and coming. I think that's good eye test, but in a game action, I wouldn't play them at all. I just think you need to keep them healthy, get them healthy for guys that are having the nagging camp injuries right now, and just get them ready and focused on week 1 against Kansas City. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that.
No, I'm totally all for that. I think this week with the joint practices, you're going to have so much competition there between the starters on both teams that, by the time the game rolls around on Sunday, I'm sure those guys will be sick of going at it. I'm sure you'll want to get them some rest after these practices. So I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see anybody again next week, and I'm perfectly okay with that because. I'm rest them up for the regular season, get it as healthy as you can. With 17 games, it's certainly turned into even more of a marathon of a regular season. Every week still really matters. So you want to have everybody available if possible. So I'm just all for with everybody staying healthy and not seeing the field in the preseason.
Was there anybody else on the offensive side of the ball that impressed you Saturday night?
I don't want to single out one person, but both the depth on the offensive line I thought performed really well. There's certainly guys on there, like a Blake Hance, like a Nick Harris, Michael Dunn. Those are guys that are gonna the Browns really want to look long and hard at because they have some decisions they have to make in terms of J.C. Treader after the season. Obviously, Wyatt Teller, who's been the big talk with all the contracts. Joe Bitonio's contract comes up soon. So, even Jack Conklin, he has a big cap number. So there's certainly guys on this on the second and third string offensive line that I think the coaching staff and Andrew Berry are really looking forward to watching and seeing how they perform because those could potentially be starters, within the next couple seasons for this offensive line based on, what happens with guys like Bitonio, Treader, and Teller, and even Conklin too.
Yeah, I thought the offensive line reserves played really well. I need to go look at PFF just to see how many pressures they gave up, but they only gave up 1 sack, and I thought that was a really good job. Jag Duffin actually brought up a really good point Sunday morning on Twitter. He said Dunn only has 1 accrued season, so the Browns keep him for 3 more years, including this year, before he becomes a legit unrestricted free agent. The way he's performing, Anthony, I have to give serious thoughts that, and Wyatt Teller even spoke about this last week, he kind of sees the writing on the wall when it comes to a contract extension. It's probably not coming from the Browns, and it really won't shock me at this point if Michael Dunn is your starting right guard come 2022. And the way he's performing right now, I don't see him losing that job to anybody else. And the fact that we're keeping him at he's only going to be making $1 million a year the next couple of years. So it's a relatively Moneyball type thing for a guy that's really showing that he should be a starting guard in the National Football League.
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation that they have with Whiteteller. And, there's been so much contract talk, over the last couple of weeks of, extend him, extend Denzel, when's Baker going to get his? It's nice, like, we can have those conversations in training camp and we're not having to worry about, like, actual drama, um, with this football team right now. So, look, we talked about the competition at the skill positions, right? So you had the same thing on the offensive line. There's 4 or 5 guys behind the starters that I think are capable of being starters in the NFL. And, when you have a guy who's entering his contract season, it's only going to put the microscope over that even more. So, I wouldn't be surprised if Teller's not here next season and a guy like Michael Dunn steps right in. Maybe it could be a guy like Hans. Maybe it could be Harris. There's certainly many guys that could, take over that spot. And, we talked about competition, and when there's 4 or 5 guys trying to fight for one spot, I think you're certainly going to bring out the best in all of them. And I'm willing to be a betting man on this one, Jack, that Wyatt Teller's just going to have a tremendous of a season as he did last year, because there's that competition behind him, and it's only going to push him to, not lose his spot. Obviously, receiving a big contract this offseason, whether it be from the Browns, whether it be from another team, it's certainly coming. I think he's going to have a tremendous season. So he'll be certainly on his way into receiving a nice payday around this, March of next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with the impending extensions of Quentin Nelson as well as Brandon Scherf, like, if Wyatt Teller has another all-pro caliber season, he's going to be making the big money deal as well. Let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball. And, we had to start with our 2 top rookies, Greg Newsome and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, made their pro debuts last night. And Anthony, I thought both played well. I mean, you look at Newsome, he did give up a big catch to Marvin Jones, but, I mean, he contested that ball. I can make the case that he won that battle, but obviously when it's a contested catch like that, it does trend towards the offense. So Marvin Jones got credited with the catch. But I thought Newsome played well. I thought he was solid in coverage, wrapped up very nicely on a couple tackles. And then JOK obviously speaks for himself. Dude was human highlight reel all night long from the moment he got on the field. You have to feel really good, even though it's preseason, about the Browns' top 2 draft picks.
Yeah, those are certainly guys that are going to be fighting for time on the football field. You have an obvious starter in Denzel Ward, but behind him you have, Greedy Williams, you have Greg Newsome, who's going to be in that next spot. So, there's certainly an opportunity there for him. I'm pretty sure that when the season rolls around, he's going to be starting opposite Denzel. If not week 1, it's certainly going to happen after a few weeks. I think he's just I think he's just that good. JOK, this guy, he's going to be like all over the football field. You're going to see him on special teams. You saw him almost block a punt yesterday, missed it by inches. The way he was able to blitz up the middle yesterday, and then the hit at the end of the game where he blew up the screenplay. You can see he's able to shed blocks really well while moving at full speed. And when you're able to do that, Jack, you can certainly cause disruption. And not only that, but his coverage skills yesterday were tremendous. His closing speed is phenomenal. This is certainly a hybrid of a football player, between a linebacker and a safety and a corner. This guy doesn't have a position. He's a football player. He's a playmaker, and he's certainly a guy on this Browns defense who I'm really excited to watch. And I've been looking for a guy on the Browns to hit like that for a long time, and to fly around the football field like that. And I think we finally got that player in JOK.
Yeah, I still can't believe some days that he fell to us at 52. I mean, it's just unbelievable. That dude,
After the talk of they wanted him in the first round, it's just like, a steal being able to get Newsome and him in the same draft.
Yeah, when every time I hear DePodesta say, "Oh, well, they were both in the discussion at 26," and you mean to tell me that we got both in the same draft? It's just unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, he was all over the field. He graded out really well, according to Pro Football Focus. Was the third highest rated player on defense. We'll get to the top two here, I'm sure, as we continue to talk about the defense. But yeah, you got to feel really good, especially the fact that he missed the first 10 days of camp when he was on the COVID list, and then he's been able to come back and right out of the gate, like he jumped into team drills the second day he was back from practice, and I didn't know how much he was going to play last night, but like he came in, he played 47 snaps, and he was all over the football field. This, like you said, whether he was a rusher, whether he was in coverage, on special teams, like the dude was all over the field and made a big impact. And I'm just looking forward to seeing how Joe Woods utilizes him as a rookie. Like, don't give him too much, but I mean, I think they're going to keep him strictly at linebacker, but it won't shock me when he drops back into coverage to be like an additional safety. But yeah, I'm just excited to see what he is. And, you know, everybody's kind of talking about like Micah Parsons as a defensive rookie of the year favorite. Like, JOK could be a dark horse for that pick. I don't want to put too much on him, and the linebacker room's really talented, but I really like what JOK can bring to this defense, and it wouldn't shock me if he's in the running for it at the end of the season.
Were you okay with him like playing late into the fourth quarter like he did last night?
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, like I said, missing the first 10 days of camp with COVID, like give him some more additional reps. Like I'm okay with that. Plus, like even though we lost Mac Wilson, like I feel good about the linebacker room with, you know, Taki, Malcolm Smith, Jacob Phillips, like, and Elijah Lee, who played a lot as well, and he had a pretty good game. Like, I feel good about the linebacker depth, and then I was, like I said, I'm okay with JOK getting the additional reps because he needed to catch up, and he certainly made the most of the opportunity last night as well.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled to watch him, and you know he's got the potential, Jack, to be one of those special players in the NFL, and I think last night you just saw the beginning of it.
Yeah, you know, other guys that made the most of their opportunity. Like I look at the pass rush reserves. Obviously, Miles and Clowney didn't play. Tank McKinley's still away with his personal matter, and I've repeated this on podcasts. Like I hope he's okay. I hope he's like everything's okay, and he can come back and be a part of this team whenever he's ready. But you know, a lot of this was because of the coverage doing a solid job. But you've seen Porter Gustin, Cameron Malveaux, Joe Jackson, Keandre Thomas was an undrafted rookie. Like these guys were back in the backfield, pressuring Trevor Lawrence, Gardner Minshew, and all of the Jacksonville quarterbacks throughout the night. And I mean, that makes you feel good that they're taking a step and making the most of an opportunity because McKinley wasn't there and because Miles and Clowney were on the outside, that the pass rush was still able to make somewhat of an impact last night. Despite the fact that they didn't generate much pressure, but they made the most of the secondary and the linebackers doing their job in terms of coverage.
Yeah, you know, another guy, Curtis Weaver, you know, who we finally got to see
Yeah.
you know, don the Browns uniform too. You know, I don't know how this defensive line is going to shake out. You know, there's certainly a lot of talent on this defensive line. And again, it's a competition thing. There's so many guys fighting for like one or two spots remaining because you have such established guys, you know, with Miles, with Andrew Billings, with Jadeveon Clowney, Jordan Elliott,
Malik Jackson.
Yep, you have all these guys that are, you know, set in stone, and you know, there's going to be a hard number crunch when the roster cuts come down because maybe you keep one of those extra skill position guys, you know, over an extra defensive lineman. Maybe you keep a couple extra defensive linemen over a couple of the linebackers. You know, it's certainly interesting to see how this like roster numbers are going to shake out by the time we get to the end of it. But you know, there's so many guys on this defensive line. And I'm really excited. You know, you have the young guys too, like Tommy Togiai and Marvin Wilson, you know, who the Browns are very high on. So Jack. I don't know who's going to make this team on this defensive line, but you know, behind like the mainstays. But It's certainly going to be a very, very tough decision. I'm definitely not one. I definitely wouldn't want to attempt to make that decision with all those guys behind them.
Yeah, I mean the defensive tackle room is the most fascinating. Sheldon Day had a good game last night playing with the first teamers. Had a sack, had a tackle for a loss. I say the first teamers; it was actually the second team defense. But Sheldon Day's making the most of his opportunities. Been around the league for a few years, so he's fighting, stating his case to make the team. You mentioned like Marvin Wilson, Malik McDowell, Tommy Togiai, and then Jordan Elliott. Jordan Elliott made a couple nice plays last night. We know Billings and Malik Jackson are the starting D tackles. We don't know what the rest of the position is going to look like. So that's fascinating. And then you mentioned, the defensive ends. We know it's Clowney and Garrett, and I would assume Porter Gustin's going to make the team. But then who else makes it behind him? Is it going to – and Takk McKinley. So then are they just going to keep the 4? Will they keep an extra one? That's why you watch the guys like Keandre Thomas, Romeo McKnight, Curtis Weaver. Like, these are going to be interesting battles throughout the rest of the camp and preseason just to see how that defensive line shakes out, because we know the starters. We just don't know the complete depth behind those starters.
Yeah, you hopefully you can sneak a couple of these guys onto their practice squad, but it's going to be very tough. When you're one of the more talented teams of football, and you have to try to sneak these guys through, most of the time you're not going to be successful, because this team has so much talent on it. So I'm interested to see how it's going to shake out, but it's certainly going to be a very tough decision.
For sure. Was there any other people on the defensive side of the ball, Anthony, that stood out to you? For me, it was Richard LeCount, the late round pick out of Georgia. I mean, not much buzz out of him in camp, especially with Redwine down, Harrison down, Delpit down with injuries right now. Like, you heard about Javonte Moffitt, but you never heard about Richard LeCount. Well, last night, Richard LeCount said his game time, and I'm going to show up. Had one interception for sure. Should have had another one. And then, he just was all over the secondary. I was talking with Alex Hale and Caitlin Marshall, who work with us at the Dogland earlier, and they were talking about how LeCount is like prime for that center field type safety role. And I was watching him last night. He was the guy. He was like what Jabril Peppers was in Greg Williams' defense. He was that center fielder back there in the secondary. He was making plays all night. Very impressed by the kid. The fact that he gets to learn behind John Johnson bodes well for him. And you hope that, he continues to build off of last night and solidifies his spot as the 4th or 5th safety back in that room.
Yeah, best case scenario, right? They signed John Johnson to the contract. They have LeCount on a rookie contract. Best case scenario, John Johnson plays out his entire contract, and then when it comes time to extend LeCount, you say thank you, John Johnson, and then you give LeCount basically Johnson's contract. You kind of hope that you could kind of rotate guys in and out of this team like that, and you don't see a talent drop off. But you have them together for a while, and you hope that LeCount is able to continue to grow. As of right now, I think I would certainly take him over Sheldrick Redwine on this team. There's some things I saw last night from LeCount that really excited me. That guy seems like he's certainly a ball hawk. The way he was flying around the secondary. On that interception, he came from about I think it was 15 yards away from where that pass was intended for, and just stepped right in front of the receiver and picked it off. And one extra move, and he was taking that all the way back. So, he certainly has talent. He's a guy who probably would have gone a lot higher in the draft if it wasn't for that accident he was in before the season last year at Georgia. So, they probably got another second round player, maybe even a first rounder in the 5th round. There's no wonder why, they talked last night about how John Woods thought or Joe Woods thought that every day was like Christmas when it was with the draft with all the players that they gave him. So, he's just another guy who's really going to contribute, I think, and I think he certainly has the potential to make a huge impact on special teams, whether that be kickoff coverage or punt coverage. So I think that's where he's really going to have the opportunity to shine this season.
Yeah, without question. I'm looking forward to seeing how he develops as the next couple seasons go along. Another guy on the defensive side that impressed me was AJ Green. Now, this is a guy in camp that's been, talked about a lot. Obviously you have Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Greedy Williams, Troy Hill. Those are your top four corners. And the battle was AJ Green versus Robert Jackson, I think, for cornerback 5. Well, Robert Jackson did not do so well at the end of last year when he was thrusted into a starting role. Did not play well last night against Jacksonville's reserve. So, and AJ Green just continues to make play after play. I mean, this was a guy the Browns paid a lot of money for last year as an undrafted rookie out of Oklahoma State. And AJ Green is playing really well. He's practicing well. He's playing well. He's definitely the clear-cut CB5 as things stand right now.
Yeah, he's another guy who, they brought in last year. Like you mentioned, they gave a lot of money to as an undrafted free agent. The Browns really wanted him. You saw some of his tape from Oklahoma State and some of the things he was able to do. And, he's certainly somebody that can contribute in this defense. And, when you have great wide receivers, in this division and in the AFC as well, of potential teams you be playing in the playoffs, you need to have some really good depth at corner because, if they throw 4 or 5 receivers out there, you need to be able to cover them. So, he's certainly a guy who is going to see playing time this season in this defense. And you hope that he could, take a step up from, being a rookie last year to a second-year player and, push guys like a Troy Hill and, maybe even push Greedy Williams and Greg Newsome a little bit and, just continue to help breed this competition that's just everywhere on this team. And, that's certainly been like the main theme of this podcast is, there's just competition everywhere. And, you hope that AJ Green is another guy who can contribute to that and continue to, push these guys ahead of them.
Yeah, without question. I think I really like the depth of the cornerback position now. They could use another one, I think. I'm surprised, Gary on Conley's still out there, but, maybe they add another corner. Maybe they're good with 5. We'll see, especially, MJ Stewart's also on this team, but they're cross-training him to be a safety, and it does help right now with the safety injury. So it'll be interesting to see how the back end of the defense takes shape once we trim the roster down to 53.
And like LeCount, he's certainly a guy who has the opportunity to make an impact on special teams this season.
Yes. Speaking of special teams, as we wrap things up, there's a kicking battle going on. I know, some didn't want to talk about it, but I did find it odd, Anthony, that, Chase McLaughlin, who they signed during the summer to, compete with Cody Parkey, got first crack last night in the kicking battle, hit a long field goal. He went 2 for 2 yesterday. Parkey did as well. Parkey doinked his field goal. Or no, let me correct myself. Parkey went 2 for 2. McLaughlin hit both extra points and he hit a field goal. Parkey doinked his second field goal attempt in. I'm giving McLaughlin the edge. And Jake Burns also said this. He agrees. McLaughlin's been more consistent throughout camp. Obviously, he got the first crack last night. Parkey is a solid veteran, despite, obviously the yips he had in the playoff game with the Bears. He's been a solid veteran kicker throughout his career. But I just think right now McLaughlin definitely has the edge. This is going to be an interesting battle, and it's obviously going to go down to the final game against Atlanta. But you would think Parkey might get it just because he's a veteran. He's been there before, but it would not shock me if the young man, McLaughlin, takes the job from him.
I can certainly see, either one of them getting the kicking job. And if one doesn't, I don't know if, teams are going to be banging at the door to sign either one of these guys, if one is released. So, there's certainly an opportunity to where if you, go with Cody Parkey and he struggles, through the first part of the season, you bring in Chase. And vice versa. If Chase struggles to the first beginning of the season, if they decide to keep him, you bring in Cody Parkey. So, there's a definite competition here. I kind of look at it this way, Jack. I don't plan on kicking many field goals this year. I think this offense is going to put the ball in the end zone more often than not. But you need to, if you have a kicker who could be a weapon, like a Harrison Butker for Kansas City, like the guy from Baltimore who's, I don't know
Justin
why.
Tucker.
Yeah, thank you. If you have a guy like that, those are game changers at the kicking position. I don't think either one of these kickers are that, but if you just have like a solid kicker, who could consistently make like 40-yard field goals, I think that if the Browns are scoring touchdowns, I think most of their drives are going to stall, close to the red zone. So those field goal attempts shouldn't be too terribly long and tough. Obviously, kicking in Cleveland Browns Stadium is not an easy task. So it'll be interesting to see on Sunday if Chase is able to perform well. With being in Brown Stadium there. So I just don't plan on kicking many field goals this year, but you need to have somebody who's reliable, somebody who's accurate. And I don't know who that's going to be out of these two right now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, especially once they get into the stadium. Like, McLaughlin kicked well from all accounts in the orange and brown scrimmage, but in a game environment with more fans in the stands. And who knows, we might get a little wind on Sunday at the stadium. Like, Parkey's done it. Let's see if McLaughlin can do it. If McLaughlin can do it, I feel like you might want to go with the young kicker, but at the same time, the Browns can't afford to mess around with this position, especially being a Super Bowl contender. Like, maybe they do roll with Parkey just because he's experienced. But like you said, and much like they did last year with Austin Seibert, if Parkey struggles or McLaughlin struggles, they'll have this one in their back pocket. Granted, they don't get signed by another team, and they'll bring the guy that they end up cutting back. So it's going to be something to watch, obviously. It's good that this is like the most of our problems right now. Who's our kicker going to be? Just goes to show how good a team the Browns are. Just to wrap it up, Anthony, the one thing, and I think this is the best takeaway, how well coached, how well prepared, and how ready the Browns were, even for a preseason game. They didn't keep any of their guys away. Like, I know Dallas kept 20 guys back in California for their preseason opener. The whole team was there. From my understanding, the whole team was there in Jacksonville. The starters got their work in pregame. But then you've seen all the reserves come in, and they were prepared and ready like they were the starters, essentially. They were the first team offense. Like, there was very minimal mistakes. There was a couple, I think they had 2-3 penalties, but they were prepared. They were well coached. Everything was finally executed. Our reserves look like a legit NFL team, and I think that just kudos to our coaching staff, who is quickly becoming one of the top ones in the league.
It's such a beautiful thing, isn't it? Like, you don't have to worry about this team being coached up, because there's such a great coaching staff that has been assembled here that whether it's the fifth wide receiver or the sixth defensive lineman, all these guys are going to get coached up very well, and you see it out there on the football field. The discipline, the way that a guy like Case Keenum was able to run the offense, the communication between everybody. You didn't see any problems yesterday. It was like getting to play in. This organization, this coaching staff is run really well from Kevin Stefanski down. And it's just certainly a refreshing thing to see. And we've waited so long to have a coaching staff like this paired with incredible talent on the football field. It's just been a great match with everything going on, and it's really exciting. And when you're able to have continuity too, everybody coming back, and the play call coming back, and guys on offense coming back, guys on defense who returned. You didn't have any massive turnover, roster overhaul, or anything like that. You're only going to see these players, this coaching staff grow even more, and that's why the Browns are up there in that top tier of the NFL right now, and teams that are looking to compete for a Super Bowl this year. It's because of this coaching staff that Andrew Berry and crew have helped put together. It's because of the talent of the players around the coaching staff, and it's certainly been a team effort from top to bottom, and it's just wonderful to see.
Without question. I mean, the fact that you see like guys are lining up properly, like previous coaching staffs, like everything was unorganized, everything was just discombobulated, like everything is so smooth with this coaching staff. It's like the organization finally got everything right from top to bottom. Now it's just a matter of going out, executing, winning football games, and then hopefully within the next few seasons we're hoisting that Lombardi trophy. And as we wrap things up, Anthony, go ahead and plug your Twitter as we get on out of here.
Yep, as always, you can give me a follow over at Anthony Joki, Joki on Twitter. Always be sure to follow the Dogland page as well, at the Dogland, and take it away, Jack.
And you guys can follow me on Twitter at JackMcCurry08. We will be back later this week to talk about what's happening at camp. We'll talk about the joint practices between the Giants and the Browns. It's probably we could be in for something, especially with how Joe Judge has been running his training camp. So hopefully there's nothing too major, but and then we'll preview next Sunday's game against the Giants. So until next time, go Browns.